Before she became president, a Moldovan prime minister described Maia Sandu as a tiny person fighting big monsters. One of those monsters is corruption. As education minister, she succeeded in combating endemic corruption in graduation exams, a terrain many thought was untouchable, and has continued to pursue her anti-corruption efforts relentlessly in her career as an economist, parliamentarian, party leader, and now president. With assistance from NDI beginning in 2015, President Sandu built a political party from scratch. By 2020, she and her party had succeeded overcoming entrenched politicians with access to many more resources. As president, Sandu has been called a tightrope walker for her efforts to build unity and solidarity in her divided country and balance relations between the East and West as she pursues membership in the European Union. She's faced a torrent of sexist and misogynistic attacks from political opponents, but inspired a new generation of women and girls in her country to pursue their dreams. She's done all this in the face of serial crisis, an internal separatist movement, economic stress, energy shortages, massive disinformation attacks from malign external and internal forces, and a devastating war next door whose impact is felt directly among the 3 million people of her country. Through it all, President Sandu has remained steadfast in her commitment to equal justice, rule of law, and democratic reform in Moldova. For her fortitude, courage, principled leadership, and commitment in the face of myriad challenges, NDI is delighted to honor President Maia Sandu tonight with its 2022 Madeleine K. Albright Democracy Award. And we thank her for joining this discussion. Ingrida Šimonytė became Lithuania's prime minister in 2020. She's only the second woman to assume this office. During her tenure, Prime Minister Šimonytė distinguished herself as a leading voice within not only the Baltic region, but Europe more broadly, as an outspoken defender of democratic principles and values globally. She's widely celebrated for her foresight, fortitude, unwavering commitment to principle, and direct talk in the face of increasingly aggressive, illiberal challenges in her region and beyond. Under her leadership, for instance, Lithuania continues to host the Belarusian democratic opposition in exile and has stood up to the Chinese Communist Party bullying for the supposed crime of showing respect for Taiwan as a vibrant democracy worthy of recognition. Yes. Lithuania for years has been steadfast in raising alarm about Russian ambitions and in its support for Ukraine through economic and humanitarian aid, military assistance, and by hosting scores of Ukrainians fleeing catastrophic Russian violence while rallying countries around the globe to do the same. Under Prime Minister Simonyte, Lithuania has demonstrated what principled leadership under stress looks like. NDI is delighted to bestow its 2022 Madeleine K. Albright Democracy Award on Prime Minister Simonyte, and we thank her as well for joining this panel discussion. I get to cross now. Yay. All right. What an incredible honor to be with two wonderful women leaders. Let's start with President Sandu. Moldova isn't all that, I get this question all the time for the record. Not that many people in America may know what Moldova stands for, what it's done. Why should America care?
Well, thank you first of all. It's a great honor to be here tonight. Moldova is a small country which is struggling to stay part of the free world, and this is becoming increasingly difficult these days. Moldova is also a small country with a big heart, and we earned this name thanks to our people who showed generosity and managed to help many Ukrainian refugees. Just to give you an example, some figures, for a population of 2.6 million, the population of Moldova, we received almost 700,000 Ukrainian refugees since the war has started. Now we have in Moldova 100,000 people, but it was quite an effort, and this is why we call Moldova a small country with a big heart. Of course, Ukraine is defending Moldova today, and Ukraine is fighting for its freedom, and it's fighting for Moldova's freedom. And we would like to thank you for supporting Ukraine and for supporting Moldova. We are committed to continue our fight for democracy. It is taking us some time, but we value freedom and we value democracy, and we are happy that we received this year the candidate status for the EU integration, and we believe that this is our chance to survive as a democracy.
Prime Minister, you've stood up to Russia, you've stood up to China. What has it cost? Why do you do it?
Well, there are people who think that we have a strange habit of looking for big guys around the block and try to punch above our weight. So I must humbly say that this is not true. The point is that what we try to stand for is the principle. And there are two principles that are important here. For Russia, we have our historical experience, which is in most of the cases very bad. And of course, this taught us many lessons. And some of the lessons are very relevant for many countries now. And the main lesson would be that the dependencies from countries that are autocratic should be as small as possible. You should decouple. And this minimizes your risks from becoming in the center of blackmail, like many countries are in the course of this invasion in Ukraine. Then the second thing is that all the autocrats are the same. So if one bully you, be sure that others most probably will also bully you. But if appeasement does not give anything in one case, then appeasement does not give anything in other cases as well.
This is a very strong message that was sent by one of the members of Parliament of Lithuania when we were in Taiwan for the World Movement of Democracy. He said appeasement doesn't work. How do you know this? Why do you stand by that?
Well, I must say that during the 33 years now of restored independence, there were cases where some of the politicians in our country were going for this, let's make friends with somebody who does not want to be friends with you, as a matter of fact, just want to dictate. But maybe let's do this and that, and then something good will happen. Let's have Gazprom as a shareholder of our gas company. And where do you end with that? You will end with highest prices in Europe. And this is not an option. So what you should do instead is look for alternatives. Build your resilience, and this is exactly what we did 10 years ago with LNG terminal, something that many European countries now would wish to have, but they are coping with the situation and trying to do that fast forward the present status because they cannot undo the past. Right. For us, that was lessons learned by on our back. And the conclusions were right. What is very important is that conclusions were right.
Yes.
Because even in the course of this invasion, we often hear people saying that, oh, don't do something because this will somehow angry Putin, or this will somehow make the situation worse. I mean, autocrats never need pretexts. They just do what they think fit, and then the only thing they understand when they hit the wall, because otherwise they will go as far as we let them.
Great, great. Sorry, I didn't mean to say great, but great. President Sandu, today you spoke at the International Anti-Corruption Conference here in Washington, and you talked about now going through the EU. One of the things that always comes hand in hand, the power and money, the autocracy Inc., what Anne Applebaum called autocracy Inc., kleptocracy Inc. What lessons have you learned from fighting corruption that you can share with us to try to stop this global movement of autocracy Inc.?
Well, from my experience, from our experience in Moldova, we learned that corruption can kill democracy. It can discredit democracy, and this is what was happening in Moldova while I was fighting together with my team in the Ministry of Education, corruption in education, and trying to teach children that it's not good to cheat, that you have to earn your results. We found out that big corruption schemes were happening in other sectors of the economy. And this is when we realized that the political class was involved in these corruption cases, and this was discrediting, and this was destroying the democracy. And we had to start from scratch. We decided to create a political party and to show it to the Moldovan people what it means to have real political party, which is financed transparently and legally. We had to teach people that they had to make small donations if they wanted to have honest people in power. Because before, people were not even asking themselves where the money was coming to finance one political party or another. And it was clear to us that corruption in politics translates into corruption in the state structures. So yes, it was a long battle, but we managed to prove to our population that you can have honest people in politics, and that democracy can deliver results, and that democracy can fight corruption. And this is what we're doing now. Of course, the Russian aggression in Ukraine is making things more difficult because of the hardship and because of the many challenges and because of the very high costs for energy. But again, we do believe that corruption is a big danger to democracy, and that's why we have to fight it, and we have to fight it together, because some of the big corruption cases that happened in Moldova involved jurisdictions in many other countries. And my expectation and my kind request is that especially countries with strong institutions would help us, would not allow for the movement of the dirty money, of the stolen money to happen across the countries. And since some of these cases have already happened, we need help to do the asset recovery and to show progress to people.
The global trends are very, very clear, right? If we are electing more illiberal leaders democratically, and both of you, your countries, feel the urgency of this. I mean, to either of you, can Russia change? I mean, do you see Russia changing? What do we need to do to ensure that Russia and the broader illiberal threat doesn't win? I mean, I keep calling this the last 2 minutes of democracy, right? What do you see?
Well, unfortunately, I believe that Russia will continue to be a big source of instability and risks for many years to come in our region. And I do believe that we need to stay together and show solidarity, and we need to save the democracies around the world, and we need to help every single country which is fighting for democracy. But unfortunately, as I said, for our regions, I do see these significant risks being there for a while?
Prime Minister.
Well, I would most probably agree with President Sandu about Russia. And my perspective would be maybe even gloomier, because when I look at the polls, whatever worth they are in a country like Russia, and I see how many people basically do not care.
Yeah.
They are neither for war nor against it. They just don't care. They will take whatever Putin will decide. And this is, I think, the worst state of mind one can imagine. So sometimes I think that we need 30 years of different propaganda from what they were seeing on this TV for recent 20 years, and maybe then at the end of the day you will see something changing. But this is very complicated, because even people who seems to be liberal or who are at least against the regime and against Putin, at some point quite often appear to be relatively imperialistic. I mean, this concept of grandeur of Russia is very present and omnipresent, I would say, in Russian society, and this is very dangerous. So without reconciliation with Russia's past, without recognizing that what happened under Stalinism, under Soviet rule, and even now, war crimes in Ukraine, I find very little possibility that Russia will change. But I will be slightly more optimistic on the global state of things, because until this war, many leaders like Putin, like Chinese Communist Party, like other leaders, were selling this illiberal model as a success model. Look, we're successful economically, the welfare is increasing,
yes.
We don't need all those human rights, all those LGBT and everything, because we live fine. But now I think this state of the world, what we see now, has somewhat scattered this image.
Yeah.
And for people who would think, why do we need all this? Why do we need this liberal democracy values when we can live in prosperity without that? It does not seem to fly that well anymore. So I would be slightly more optimistic that if we do not stop protecting what is crucial, if we do not forget that freedom is not given for granted,
yeah.
because this is not the air we breathe, and even air can be polluted, so freedom can be taken away, then I would be more optimistic about the global perspectives.
That's kind of a... so Madeleine Albright talked about fascism as... sorry, I used the word fascism. She taught me to use that word as plucking the feathers of a chicken, one feather at a time. We've now seen the broader trend of where we're headed. For the Madeleine K. Albright Award, the inaugural awards, from the woman who was fighting for rights of women leaders at a time when digital disinformation, when the platforms themselves have made it harder for women leaders. You will both come under attack. We're coming into the last few minutes of our thing. I leave you the floor to respond to, for your response to the Albright, the Madeleine K. Albright Democracy Award.
If we're talking about the disinformation and how difficult it was for us, on one hand, it was helpful to have the social media, because it's cheaper and we got access easier and we could spread the information and the messages. On the other hand, of course, soon enough we found out that this was also the means to
attack us,
to attack and to spread disinformation. And in our case, again, is the hybrid war of Russia, and it's the propaganda, and it's extremely difficult to fight it. And here we are learning from Lithuania, because Lithuania is probably the best when it comes to fighting propaganda and disinformation. In our specific case, because Moldova is a small country, what we have done, what I have been doing, is just going and talking to the people. And again, this is possible because my country is small, but all these years I've been probably in more than half of the the villages in the country and just talking to people. But of course, we have to take it seriously, and we have to create the conditions for people to understand what is the truth and what is the lie. And this is a difficult education process, but we need to invest in that.
Prime Minister.
Well, I would say that Madeleine Albright was a role model for female leaders, for politicians, for leaders in whatever area, and things that she believed in are very close to the things that are being challenged now every day, especially on the battlefield in Ukraine, but not only on the battlefield, but also when Ukrainian people are being bombed and attacked by missiles every day, destroying infrastructure, trying to make people's life miserable. And I was in Kiev 10 days ago, and it's hard to pass the picture, the feeling, where you understand that the more Russia goes against the population, the more it tries to make people's life miserable, the stronger resolve you see in people's eyes. So for me, this award is, is something just like a reminder that we all have, and I have, a moral obligation. And this is our common moral obligation to support Ukrainians, Belarusians, and other people who are still fighting for the right to live in their free and democratic country. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me now welcome NDI Chair Thomas Daschle back to the stage to present the award to President Sandu and Prime Minister Šimonytė.
I'm deeply honored to receive the Madeleine Albright Award on behalf of the Moldovan citizens fighting for democracy and for freedom. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.